the story of Sarah and her journey to London. A dream begins with a map. Ever since she was a little girl, Sarah had loved books about far-flung lands. She would spend hours gazing at the world map, imagining walking down the narrow streets of Paris, boating through Venice's canals, or standing beneath London's soft gray skies. Among all destinations, London stirred Sarah's heart most. In her mind, that city was a dream. Historic, elegant, full of cultural color. Growing up, a busy life swept Sarah into the routine of studies, part-time work, and everyday worries of youth. Yet the dream of London smoldered quietly in her heart. It didn't fade, it just lay dormant, waiting for a chance to come alive. One weekend afternoon, Sarah and her best friend Anna sat in their favorite cafe. After some light chatter, Sarah suddenly spoke up. "I want to go to London. Not someday far off, but soon." Anna looked at her, unsurprised, only smiling gently. "Then go. You're young, you have time, and you have a heart that loves adventure. Why wait?" That sentence blew the spark of Sarah's dream into a flame. For the first time in years, she no longer saw international travel as too far off. No, it was entirely possible. And if not now, when? Back home, she pulled the old map from her drawer. The creases, the lines faded by time, yet London's position remained. It had been her heart's destination all those years. She opened her laptop, launched a blank notebook, and typed the first lines of a plan. Research famous places, make a basic budget, check passport, find suitable lodging, learn a few British-style English phrases. Sarah understood. The journey is not just about going somewhere. It's the journey from dream to action. And the first action is to believe she deserves to live her dream. That old map didn't just guide her to a city. It had guided a brave heart and a story now being written. Solo travel, the journey not only to the world, but to yourself. Sarah had never imagined she could travel alone. Until now, all trips were with family, friends, or tours. She always thought, traveling solo must be lonely, until a dream big enough made her dare the untried, going solo to London. At first, Sarah was terrified. She feared loneliness in a strange place, getting lost, facing issues without help. But alongside the fear was an indescribable excitement. She knew, if she didn't go now, she'd have endless next years when someone goes with me, when I'm freer, to delay the dream. She chose not to wait. On departure day, her parents saw her off at the airport. Everything in her suitcase had been checked. Flight ticket, passport, cash, and a trembling heart about to live something she once thought only happened in films. The plane lifted off, and Sarah began a journey not only to a new country, but to her true self. In London's days, Sarah did everything alone, and in that alone she discovered wonderful truths only solo travel reveals. Total freedom. No one deciding breakfast time or arguing about plans. Sarah followed her own schedule, lingered longer where she felt moved, and walked quickly past what didn't interest her. She could hear herself. Meeting new people. In groups we stay within our bubble. Solo, you open up. Sarah befriended people from Germany, South Korea, France, just greeting someone at the hostel or joining a walking tour. True growth. Her first time getting lost, first time dealing with a lost phone, first time resolving a problem through her own calmness, Sarah saw herself growing day by day. No longer a girl who only looked at London on a map. She had stepped into the city with her own legs, her heart, and courage. Traveling alone isn't about proving anything. It's simply the time you live fully with yourself, without noise or expectations from others. And sometimes, alone is the strongest way to know who you are. Have you ever traveled alone to a faraway place? The journey begins with a notebook. One quiet afternoon, after a brief talk with her friend about her dream to go to London, Sarah returned to her room feeling an indescribable flutter. She sat at her desk, the late day sun shining through the window, warming the worn wood. Before her lay an old notebook, the first page still blank. She uncapped her pen. As if compelled by her heart, Sarah began to write, "Travel plan to London, the dream will come true." Not in perfect English. Not a polished tour plan like a travel blogger's. Simple, a mental map where she step by step led herself towards something long deemed impossible. Page 1, places I want to go. Big Ben, Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, British Museum, Hyde Park. She added a tiny note beside, "Have English tea just once." Next page, things to do, check passport. Research visa, Sarah discovered she didn't need one for a short trip, breathed a sigh. Find safe budget lodging. Make a budget, learn British social etiquette. The more she wrote, the clearer everything became. The dream was no longer blurry. It had form, specific times, specific places. Each bullet point was a step closer to London. Then she thought of smaller details. Buy a travel sim to call home. Bring a jacket, London can be cold. Learn a few British phrases like cheers, lovely, excuse me, to fit in. That notebook, meant as a planning tool, gradually became a companion. After each day of prep, Sarah sat down, opened it, added new ideas, edited parts that weren't right, and pasted small printed photos of landmarks she wanted to visit. That notebook held not only things to do, but emotions. Excitement, nervousness, fear mingled with belief. Because, a dream truly begins when you dare write it down. When an idea leaves your mind and appears on paper, it's no longer abstract. It's a plan, a promise to yourself. Sarah kept that promise, starting with a notebook in the first written line. Planning by myself, absolute freedom. Sarah wasn't someone used to controlling everything. Before, she depended on friends and family for every trip. Others booked tickets, others picked lodging, others made the schedule, and she just had to grab the backpack and go. But this time was different. Her first solo trip, no one planning for her, no one reminding her to bring a jacket, check her passport, or book dinner. Everything decided by herself. And strangely, that made her feel free. Sarah opened her laptop, sat before her familiar notebook, and started searching. Safe hostel in central London. How do tube trains work in the UK? Traditional British cuisine. Cheap travel SIM card. How much cash to bring to London? Those small searches didn't just gather info, they shaped a new version of Sarah. Proactive, adaptable, and clear about what she wanted. She chose a small hostel near the tube station, read dozens of reviews to ensure it was safe, clean, and within budget. She created a detailed budget, calculating every pound for meals, entry tickets, transport, and even unexpected costs in case I get lost. She decided not to carry too much cash, but use an international card for spending control. She learned about tax refund procedures when shopping. She learned to use city maps, the very thing she always left for someone else to handle. Every choice, every decision, even the smallest, made Sarah feel more grown. No longer a dreamy girl viewing London on a screen. Now, she was the one crafting her journey. And then, in a quiet moment before departure, Sarah looked over all she'd prepared and smiled. She didn't need anyone to hold her hand to guide her. She didn't need someone to ensure everything went smoothly. Because when you plan your own journey, you're building confidence and strength step by step. Planning yourself is not just a skill, it's a silent statement. I'm capable of living the life I choose, and Sarah chose freedom, initiative, and the courage to begin. The flight didn't just take me to London, but to myself. I sat by the window, hands gripping the seatbelt gently, heart racing as the plane began to taxi. Through the little window, streetlights stretched behind like time receding. I inhaled deeply, feeling the engines tremble as wheels lifted off. In that moment, I was not just leaving one country, I was leaving my old self behind. On the plane, among hundreds of strangers, I felt closer to myself than ever before. I opened my notebook, the place where I'd written the first line for this journey, and read again. I will go to London by myself, and I will be okay. Those words were no longer a promise. They had become reality. The plane soared through the clouds, leaving below little cities twinkling. I imagined someone down there just like me, on a faraway journey, carrying fears, hope, and a dream unformed. The flight attendants served meals, and I ate alone, no familiar voices around. But curiously, I didn't feel lonely. Instead, I felt peaceful, calm, as if that silence opened space for thoughts I'd long avoided. I can live without someone else carrying me. I can take care of myself in the smallest ways, and I deserve to live a life I designed. When cabin lights dimmed, the plane drifted into night, and most people slept. I stayed awake, gazing at the vast sky outside my window. In the air, between time zones, between worlds, I realized I am no longer the old me. I am no longer the girl who hesitated, feared mistakes, feared losing her way. I am shifting, not just geographically, but in soul. Those 13 hours weren't long to me. Every moment, I was living my truth. No pressure, no expectation, no labels of should be this or should be that. Just me, being me. And when the plane landed in London, my heart no longer trembled. I wasn't only stepping onto a new city, I was entering a new chapter of life where I knew clearly the greatest freedom is stepping forward even when you're alone. Among a bustling square, I was still realizing I was truly alive. On my first day in London, I walked out of the tube station and let my feet decide the path. No heavy schedule, no specific destination, just my heart whispering, walk and feel. That morning, the sky was clear blue, greeting me gently as a foreign city. I wandered past old stone streets and historic buildings steeped in history. Everything, from the smell of toasted bread by the curb, the sound of shoes tapping pavement, to the occasional horn, felt like a whisper. You've arrived. I walked on until the light at the end of the street led me to a broad square. Pigeons fluttering in the air, street performers alive in their art, and hundreds of people from around the world living their own moment. I stood there among strangers and froze. Not because of beauty, but because a strange feeling rose in me, the feeling of truly living. No worry about deadlines, no pretending to be strong in front of someone, no glances judging or words making me shrink. Here, in this foreign city, I could just be myself. I smiled at a little Italian boy stumbling over English with his mother. I applauded when a street performer spun in energetic music. I let wind blow through my hair and sunlight brighten my gaze, without frowning. I didn't avoid, didn't try to control emotions. I simply felt. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like something was missing in my life. I wasn't chasing someone's expectations. I didn't need to improve or be reasonable in others' eyes. I am me, not because someone approves, but because I approve myself. That square, with laughter, music, sunlight, and life, became an improvised symphony, and I, the passing visitor, was lucky enough to blend into it. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. Not to show off, but to hold a real moment when I realized living doesn't mean being busy or successful. Sometimes being fully present with yourself is enough. To myself, thank you for not giving up. To the me of days gone by, if I could go back, I'd hold you. Little girl with tired eyes who still tried to smile. I clearly remember you sitting in that small room, unfinished suitcase beside you, confused not knowing what this trip would bring. You once asked, am I doing something crazy? And even if the answer was maybe, you still went. I know you were lonely. Those first nights in a strange land, hearing a loved voice on the phone with tears silently falling. Days at school and work, lost among crowds, feeling like a fragile spark in a city of strangers. You wanted to collapse, to go home, to give up everything. But you didn't. You chose to stand. To continue in small steps, even if they were through tears. You learned to cook, fix your bike, write a CD. You smiled more when you realized you were growing stronger, becoming a better version of yourself. And today, sitting in a familiar cafe in London, writing these words, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for not giving up, even when everything felt unbearable. Thank you for believing in the dream, even though no one guaranteed it would come true. Thank you for not forgetting who you are, even across a foreign land where sometimes you felt lost. Oh, past me, you were imperfect. But that very imperfection brought us here, to a place not easy, but filled with freedom. A place where you dared to speak your mind, to love, and to let go of what didn't belong to you. If you're reading this, know, every small step you once persisted through is the foundation of the strong woman today. This journey isn't over. Life will still challenge you, but now you have belief. You know, nothing is impossible if you keep walking, with a fearless heart and a soul that dares to be real. To myself, keep moving forward, and never forget, you were brave. Once again, you were brave. Once again, I was brave. There are moments in a girl's life when she feels she cannot stand anymore. when her heart shatters after loving the wrong person, when misplaced trust becomes a deep scar, when the whole world turns its back and she can't even recognize herself among the pieces. You've been through that. The nights hidden in blankets, silent tears, unwilling to meet anyone, disinterested in anything. A single word, look, or fleeting memory was enough to plunge you into the depths of pain and longing. People say time heals, but you weren't sure, because time passed, yet the pain seemed to remain. But then, one ordinary morning, you woke up and felt your heart no longer weighed down. The sunlight outside seemed warmer. The tea you brewed smelled sweeter. In the mirror, you saw a girl gradually regaining her smile. You realized you still exist, whole and stronger than ever. No need to hide the wound. No need to pretend you're fine. You accepted that you once hurt, and because of that, you learned to love yourself. You began to walk again, listen to leaves falling under your feet, smile at a puppy chasing butterflies, and open your heart to new friends. You gave yourself a chance to live, not just exist. You rewrote the unfinished dream, registered for the course you always wanted, and even booked a solo trip, not to run away, but to find yourself again. Maybe the past will always be there, but you know, it's no longer a chain holding you back. It's part of the journey, proof of the courage you had and still have. Now, when you look in the mirror, you don't see a weak girl, but a woman who once broke, but chose to stand and continues to live with pride. Once again, you were brave. And this time, you didn't need anyone to rescue you. You are your own hero. If that day I truly fell, if that day I truly collapsed, then perhaps today there wouldn't be me, a strong, courageous woman knowing what she wants anymore. There are moments in life when just one last drop can break you. You were once in that moment, alone in a foreign city, feeling the whole world turn away. No one heard you. No one understood. You didn't even understand yourself. I remember that night clearly. The night I cried until I could barely breathe in that cold room, my mind repeating only one question. Why am I here? What did I do wrong? It wasn't weakness, but because I tried too hard in silence. Failures, insults, rejections, I swallowed them all inside because I was afraid to inconvenience others, afraid to be seen as complaining. I once thought, maybe I should give up, go back, start over like everyone else. But the strange thing was, the next morning, I still woke up, still left the house, still did what I'd chosen to do. Because deep inside, there was a small flame, so small that sometimes I thought it had gone out. But no, it still flickered, and it saved me. You started again with simple things, a morning coffee, a small book, a walk with no destination. You learned to slow down, to forgive yourself. You don't need to be strong all the time or to prove anything. You just need to continue. And bit by bit, you saw a change. Things didn't immediately get better, but you did. You began to be more confident talking to strangers. You dared to apply for jobs, dared to say no, dared to walk away from toxic relationships. You became a version your past self wouldn't have believed in. So now when someone asks, how did you get through it? You just smile. Because actually, you didn't get through it. You went through it. Step by step, breathe by breath, stumble then rise again. If that day I fell, there would be no today. But I didn't fall. And that is the greatest thing I ever did for myself. Once strangers? We were once just two strangers in a busy crowd. A chance moment, a passing glance, an unintended smile. No one knew that fleeting moment would become the beginning of an untitled long journey. Back then, I was a girl carrying a world of unanswered questions. And he, perhaps, was also tangled in his own worries. We passed by each other like many strangers do, thinking we'd never meet again. Yet, life always finds ways for pieces that seem unrelated to find each other. The next meeting came by chance. A familiar cafe, a shared book, and then a conversation that lasted as if we had never been strangers. From idle words to heartfelt confessions, we gradually touched the deepest parts of each other, wounds, dreams, and hidden loneliness. Friendship or love, I couldn't clearly define. I only knew that every day with him, my world felt gentler. We didn't have to pretend to impress. We didn't need perfection. We only needed to be ourselves, and that was enough. There were evenings we sat silently watching the city lights. No many words, but a look exchanged was warm enough. Sometimes just holding hands was enough to make me feel safe. As time passed, that relationship grew gently, without noise, without rush. We remained two independent individuals, but always had one place to return to: each other. I used to think beautiful relationships only existed in books or movies. But then he appeared, real and close enough to make me believe. Among millions of strangers, sometimes you only need one gentle soul to thaw your heart. Now when someone asks, "What's the most wonderful thing you've ever encountered?" I just smile and remember the first day we crossed paths as two strangers. And I silently thank us for stopping, turning back, and choosing to walk on together. Because in a hurried world, holding someone's hand and walking slowly is the greatest miracle. The dream home, and a reality of absence. I once dreamed of a warm home. A small house, but filled with laughter, morning sunlight through windows, steaming meals, and the embrace of loved ones. In that dream, I was a child comforted in fear, hugged after a long day, loved unconditionally. But when I opened my eyes, I saw only cold walls and long stretches of silence. No laughter, no embraces, no one asking, "Are you okay today?" My childhood was tied to shouting, cold glances, and a constant need to tread carefully. Every step, every word might spark angry storms. There were days I wished to be invisible, to avoid scolding, punishment, and pain. I once asked, "Why isn't home like in stories?" Then I grew up and gradually understood, not everyone is born into a complete home. Some houses are just places to live, not places to return to. But strangely, no matter how old I became, my heart still longed for it, a place to be myself, without fear, without burdens. I tried to build that home in sincere friendships, through a stranger's kind eyes, or sometimes just in a spontaneous hug from someone who understood me. I learned to cook myself warm meals, clean my tears, hug myself when no one else would. I learned to love myself, as a parent should. Though clumsy, at least I'm repairing the emptiness inside me. That dream of a home, I still hold. But now I don't wait for anyone to bring it. I'm constructing it, little by little. Perhaps a small room with golden light, a favorite book corner, or a friend who listens. I call that home. Not perfect, but where I feel peace. Maybe the past caused me pain, but the dream of a home helped me not give up. And if you've been like me, please remember, you have the right to dream and the right to build your own home. Starting with self-love is enough. I am no longer the child in the corner. There was a gaze that followed me through childhood, a look that froze me in fear, made my heart race and my legs tremble. That look needed no words. A single glance was enough to know what awaited: pain, tears, or suffocating silence. I tried to forget it. I believed if I didn't mention it, if I stayed silent, it would vanish as if never existed. But no, memories are not that easy to erase. That gaze followed me in dreams, in ordinary days. I might be sitting in a crowded cafe when suddenly my heart pounds, remembering being trapped in a corner where no one could save me. But I am no longer that child. I have grown. I have learned to face fear, and above all, I understand that gaze no longer holds power over me. The one who once made me cower now no longer rules my story. I am a survivor, evidence of resilience, a voice for children forgotten, forced into silence, losing belief in love. I chose not to be silent anymore. I tell my story, not to relive pain, but so other children know, you are not alone. You deserve protection. You have the right to speak up. I once thought, if I speak out, will anyone believe me? But now I know, just believing in myself is enough. As long as I move forward, trembling, hurting, that is already triumph over some part of darkness inside me. I'm still afraid, but fear no longer controls me. I still remember that gaze, but it no longer defines me. I am a survivor. I am rewriting the ending of my childhood story. And I know there are many journeys ahead, but I will not turn back. I move on because I chose light, and I believe in the person I'm becoming. I am the one rewriting my story. The day I stood in front of the mirror and looked deep into my own eyes, I realized something. The person staring back wasn't the little girl who used to hide in the corner, trembling with fear. She wasn't the child who cried quietly into her pillow at night, hoping someone, anyone, would come to save her. That reflection was me, but stronger, braver, a survivor. I was no longer just living my story, I was rewriting it. For a long time, I believed my past was a life sentence. His eyes, cold and shameless, still haunted my dreams. The sound of a turning doorknob, the heavy footsteps in the hallway, used to send my heart racing in panic. I spent years in silence, not because I didn't want to speak, but because I thought no one would believe me. Worse, I thought it was somehow my fault, That belief was the first scar he left behind. But I didn't stay broken. I survived, not by running, but by standing tall, by finding my voice, and deciding that no darkness would ever own me again. At first, I told my story through scribbled pages in my journal. Then I told a friend. And then I stood on a stage looking out at a room filled with children who had lived through pain just like mine. Sharing my truth was terrifying, but necessary. And then something happened that I'll never forget. A little girl, maybe 9 years old, came up to me after the talk. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "I was like you." In that moment, I knew I wasn't invisible anymore. My voice mattered. I no longer let the past define who I am. I no longer carry the weight of his stare. Instead, I carry the warmth of empathy, the power of courage, and the light of those who choose to rise, no matter how many times they've been pushed down. I chose life. I chose healing. I chose forgiveness. Not for him, but for the younger version of me, the girl who endured what no child ever should. Today, I continue writing my story, not with sorrow, but with resilience. Not to forget, but to remember just how far I've come. I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become. And if you're reading this, carrying your own scars, please know this. You have the right to live. You have the right to be heard. You have the right to tell your story in your own time and in your own way. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future.